And the Slimefoot list, I would say, is also kind of the standard Slimefoot list. Can't see anything that I would say that's really stands out. The customer order is present, Flair of Malice is present, and yeah, so we are looking at a matchup that has probably been repeated at tournaments around
Already
the
having
time a
a
lot.
brutal start with a Sanctifier.
Yeah, which very good card against Slimefoot. It dodges a bunch of removal that the deck has.
Also
It can
taking care of
basically,
the graveyard shenanigans, right?
yeah, it can basically only die in combat, and or get edicted.
Yeah. Yep.
And if the Sanctifier is getting edicted, that means that the um, that Light-Paws isn't most of the time. So yeah, pretty demoralizing start for Slimefoot here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially losing the die roll, being on the draw, not having a dork turn 1.
Chaos Defiler does the job here, but you have to find a way to bring that down.
Yeah, you have to
And
get to it.
since Slimefoot started without a dork, it's basically delaying the entire setup for another turn. On the other side, best what Light-Paws can do without a turn 1 protection is just playing another one of these plenty 2-drops, because the deck apparently has lots of different 2-drops featured.
And there's also a bunch of 2-drops that really hate out what's going on the other side, especially something that Slimefoot would be doing. Hushbringer stops.
I knew that you would say Hushbringer. It
Stops
was on my
everything,
lips.
and Goalkeeper Thrall does the same thing.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah, I will
Not
show
the
the
die
Goalkeeper
trigger,
Thrall,
but
it's and it's also interesting that the deck doesn't play Solitude, or most of the decks that I've seen, and the list that I've played previously did not include Solitude, which is debatable. But if you play all these Turbo Orb effects, I can see that. And also because, you have Light-Paws into, I find one of my Sheltered by Ghost, for example. You have some interaction on an aura, and the one that you search cannot be an On Thin Ice. But even then, I think, let me think about it. There's On Thin Ice or CMC1. There's Swift of Reconfiguration. So those are the one that need to be in hand. You cannot search for, but the Sheltered by Ghost is definitely one that you can find. And here we have a Tithe Taker. So I would assume, based on that sequencing, that Victor currently has no CMC1 aura in hand in order to protect Tifa, Light-Paws. Otherwise, you could have slammed Light-Paws and play one of those flash auras on CMC1. And most of the time, if your opponent has some interaction for that, it will end up in a Shard Mage's Rescue, I think it's called. It's the one that temporarily grants hexproof.
True. Yep. That also exists on 2 in a bunch of ways. Is there any Convoke auras? That would be cool.
Convoke auras? Probably.
Yeah. There is Lash Knife.
Yeah, Lash Knife is some kind of a Convoke aura.
Basically Convoke.
Yeah, true. You have to have the planes, but still. And most of the lists still feature it, because searching for a CMC2 aura is super, super powerful.
Yep.
I said that in the previous podcast we had. was it a podcast or maybe another cast of an event? The fact that, oh no, it was with the committee actually. The fact that this deck recently got the Brilliant Wings is an enormous boost for Light-Paws. And some people said, well, it's 1 of 99. Yeah, but you have the tutor, the reliable tutor for that in your command zone. And that's basically what the deck is doing all the time. And
Yeah.
once you can assign hexproof to Light-Paws, you can do whatever you want with that. And by the time Wizards would print a conditional CMC1 hexproof card, like Aura, it would basically mean that I think we would have to ban Light-Paws at that point.
Hmm.
It's not like, it's not like +1/+1 hexproof by default, but imagine something going in a similar direction as the Daybreak Coronet, for example, that you have to, let's say you have to attach a creature that already has 2 auras attached, for example.
Yeah.
To nerf it a little bit, but in this case, it would not be a big of a nerf.
Yep.
That would definitely make the deck even stronger because sometimes you're lacking the CMC2 auras. Here, going for the Cartridge of Solidarity, I think. Yeah. Which makes another token. But, oh, I think the other card was a Fatal Push, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that is a fatal push. He paid 1 to the Tithe Taker,
Yeah.
and now there's a Surge of Salvation.
Yeah, the search is definitely good.
And yeah, that's his. I don't know if that wasn't his entire hand, but that was a lot of his hand, and he now gets to search for something, um, maybe an ethereal armor or something that puts pressure on the opponent, and then now, yeah, this is a difficult board state to get out of, especially because things like Flare of Malice, you want to be doing that when there's not a lot of creatures on the opponent's board. Slimefoot does not have any board wipes,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, I
like a
think
Toxic Deluge
overall,
could still do something here, but especially with the Sanctifier already having protection from black and red. Now we see a Flickering Ward
Flickering Ward
on the Light-Paws.
seals the deal. It seals the deal. Because this is also another very, very almost, I would say it's even a toxic part about the deck. That if you run out of auras to keep on, you just find yourself Flickering Ward, and all of a sudden you have multiple triggers gained again. Because you just bounce it back and cast it again and cast it again, and so on and so forth. And it's actually not that hard to find a timing window for that. Because most of the time Light-Paws has some type of light protection attached to it already. So you can safely get it back to hand, recast it, find another CMC1 thing, ethereal armor, and the like.
Yeah. And especially with this board, the likelihood, like Slimefoot has the ability to really gum up the board very well, to
Yeah.
put a
Yeah.
bunch of creatures in play and make it difficult to block or be blocked and stuff like that. But Lightpaws having all these protection abilities and protection from creatures and then pumping your creatures, he can also just attack. He can put the game down to the Sanctifier, and next turn, I think that's a 2-mana aura he has in play. I think that is a
Benevolent Blessing.
Benevolent Blessing, yeah.
Yeah.
And that also means that he can give protection from green with a Benevolent Blessing and play in all that glitters, which gives it +5/+5 currently. Um,
6.
well, would 6?
Right?
I see the cartouche.
1, 2,
3, 4,
3,
5.
4, 5. You're right. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. Because Urza Saga counts too.
exactly.
Yep.
If he finds a land, he can make a construct and use the Benevolent Blessing, or he has at least one recast of the Flickering Ward, which could get him an ethereal armor, which would make it. Opponent has 12 life, 3 from the cartouche, 3 with the cartouche, plus that would be 1 more for the all that glitters, so 6 for the all that glitters, and 7, 8, 9. Yeah, that's enough. It's lethal from just the Sanctifier on Vec that he
Yep.
is presenting now,
Yep.
with protection from black, green, and red. So
Yeah,
yeah,
you might wonder about the artifact one drops that the deck is going for. I would assume there's definitely a Springleaf drum in the 99 because that
it
helps
has
to.
3 targets. Retrofit a Foundry, which I would think is a little out there, plus Ghost Vacuum, plus Springleaf Drum.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, you can, since the deck is not as explosive as Tifa is, you can definitely encounter some very grindy games, and I can imagine against a very fast, aggressive deck, the Retrofitter Foundry could do the job. Then again, I agree to the point that, seems to be a bit.
A bit slow.
Yes, a bit slow indeed. So, Brigone is, by the way, a rather new card that I really like. It's a really good update for the 99. Go it quickly to you guys. Definitely synergizes well with. It's a bit like a Illuminator Virtuoso, just in a different direction,
True. Yeah,
Then
drawing
we
cards
it's really
like
good.
also like a core Spirit Dancer, right? When
Yeah, exactly.
the only issue is that it only counts for cast, but yeah, also having the vigilance, being able to block and then draw the card end of the opponent's turn is also very strong.
Yeah. So we have a Deadpool coming down, changing the text box with Light-Paws, and it seems that the Light-Paws player is explaining, yes, you get the text box change, but you cannot.
Remove the
The, the, the,
protection.
the flickering ward is not falling off. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the
So the
Fury.
Fury deals with 2 creatures, and the Light Paws suddenly doesn't tutor anymore.
I think you forget his Afterlife trigger, right? From the Theft Taker.
That's correct, yeah.
Did I miss something here? I think he missed the trigger. So yeah, still, I mean, Slimefoot is at 12, which is not too crazy. Then again, you can just.
With the Light Paws text box gone, we're looking at a bit more of a difficult game.
But
All the
he's
creatures are unblockable, so he's attacking for 5.
6. Solidary adds +1/+1. Oh, no, sorry. Never mind. Yeah. For some reason, I think the Sanctifier is at 4 already. Here we have a Hope of Jirapur. So that's one of the cards that the Urza Saga could find. It's been a while that I've seen this card, honestly.
Hope of Girapur?
Yeah.
It's been like 6 hours.
Okay, correct. Because it was played in the Dago pile. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're right.
It was also on the board in the Dago pile,
That's
so
true. That's true. We've gone through so many interesting matchups already. I forgot about how that day actually started.
yeah. I agree with you though that the Hope of Girapur is a card that we don't see very often in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
It's a very specific card that has some pretty good matchups. You know, if you are trying to force stuff through interaction and counter spells and stuff like that, then putting it on the board, it's a 1/1 for one that doesn't always eat interaction, and then you can sacrifice it in order to have a big turn where you deploy a Light-Paws that is protected from a bunch of things. Um,
Yeah.
oh, Light-Paws having the cool construct tokens.
Yeah, the one with the mill on it, right?
Yeah, the windmill construct tokens. He's now going to have 4/4 constructs and a flyer. He does take more damage from the Light-Paws that has been.
But only 4/4 if he produces another construct. Yeah.
Yeah, but I with the Light-Paws text box gone, I would be surprised if he uh, valued that
Yeah.
enchantment so highly. Because the Fatal Push is gone, so now it's literally, I think it's just Dismember in the Slimefoot deck. That is instant speed and that would deal with the Light-Paws itself, and why would you remove the Light-Paws right now?
Yeah.
So
I mean, what I like about this setup right now is if there's another land drop, he could think about either getting back the Flickering Ward and attach it to the construct to give protection from green, which would force the opponent to block with Deadpool. And then you still have the Sanctifier coming in all over again, right? And since
but I don't know if you want to, like, the trade might already be forced with with a construct. The construct does 4/4, and then you also need another mana to take the flickering ward off the creature in order to keep it in hand, right?
that is correct, yeah. Yeah,
Because
let's see.
currently it's the Light-Paws that's attacking for 2 damage, um, which is sort of unblockable, pseudo unblockable, I would say.
Yeah. I mean, we
Um,
have the Hope of Jirapur. The thing is that the Sanctifier is not free damage anymore with the Saproling on field.
but it's also
So
not the biggest creature, so he can just swing all out. That's 1 damage from the Hope of Girapur, and some blocking configuration that has to go on there.
yeah,
And he also has the the Springleaf Drum to tap the Summoning Sick construct and give protection to have very profitable blocks.
that's true, yeah. Since the blessing has flash.
Oh, but he's deciding not to attack with the construct.
Yeah. I mean, a bit more conservative here with the combat phase. Next turn is definitely a turn that you need to take care of some of those creatures if possible.
Yeah.
Because, now you will probably throw the Saproling into the Sanctifier, I guess. And then you're taking 1 from the Jirapur and 2 from. So it would be 3. He's instead going down to 1. Why would you not sacrifice the Saproling here?
I mean, if he wants to do some pre-combat shenanigans with the
I don't know. I think
Slimefoot.
that's probably not the right decision here. It seems to be a grist in hand, which doesn't do much. I mean, the insect tokens are also black, so they cannot block the Sanctifier. And attack phase here is not very attractive as yeah, and he packs it up, which
Yeah.
which makes sense. Um, there's not not really much to do on Slimefoot's side. Okay, 1-0 for Light-Paws. We didn't see a single big boy beating him down. Instead, we had a couple of those 2-drops I was talking about. Sanctifier being a very, very good hit here in the early game. Definitely problematic for Slimefoot. It was one of the matchups I lost with Tifa because the matchup itself is very difficult for Tifa. But apart from that, I rarely see it. You see quite a few top 8 results with it because it's apparently a very good deck. But, when people. There's also so much to choose from regarding white commanders. You have Cloud, you have Felia, you have Oswald for the very dedicated affinity people, and then you have Light-Paws. And most people choose between Felia and Cloud, right? And they don't really think
Yeah.
about Light-Paws because also the overall play style has to be appealing to you.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a bit similar to Cloud, except you're tutoring even more with the Light-Paws, where um, you have so much choice and so many opportunities to actually get the wrong enchantment and realize 2 or 3 turns later um, that you could have gotten a different enchantment and won the game, and these sorts of things. Probably with enough experience with the deck, you have some patterns that you kind of fall into where you know in what situations which enchantment you're going to get um, most of the time, and have kind of a formula for it. But I also don't like that sort of thinking. Like it's good to have kind of that formula, but I also think that formulas lead to misplays where you're always getting the same thing when a certain thing happens, and
Oh, what is
sometimes you forget
happening?
to.
Mana type Slimefoot with the delighted halfling? No, no, no. What is happening here?
Oh,
Judge.
charge. Yeah,
That's not correct.
that is a very different game. If yeah, I think we should get some.
I'm interfering already. I'm gonna tell that to the organizers.
I didn't see. Did he get the tiger off the polluted delta? Did he play the Bayou turn 1? Is that
Yep,
okay? Yeah. So,
that's what I
oh, it looks like they've put their cards down. I think. Oh, maybe not. No.
know.
Have we got a response?
I'm writing to Clément. I hope he sees it. Love these FNM plays. I mean, it's yeah, you can oversee that, but that's just it's written on the cards. It's not like a trigger to miss or anything in that direction.
And he can't use colorless mana from the delighted halfling to cast the Slimefoot, so he has to use the colored mana.
Exactly. Exactly. So that's
How? What is
that's a bit
happening
of an
now?
that's a bit of an awkward reroll. Well, like the Winter Moon was cast and he had like 2 lands untapped.
Oh, he's
Tapped.
deciding. He decided for a very long time which land to tap.
Yeah. So let's see. And this is also, by the way, guys, this is not that the Light-Paws player is cheating here or anything. No, this is just both players are not
Have failed to
aware of the
maintain the game
fact.
state.
Exactly.
Yeah. So hopefully we can get a judge in here soon to fix
I
this
hope so too.
situation. Because the further they continue to play, the
the harder it will be to
roll it
get,
back.
yeah, to roll it back. Exactly.
Yeah.
What do you mean SNS? What do you mean he cheated?
Well, he searched for a land that he couldn't have gotten with the polluted delta.
Oh, that is also true. Yeah. Okay. Okay. I'm gonna call the organizer. Ah.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, I mean, interesting. We'll see how the judges handle it when they get to it. A lot has happened. Yeah, I think we should probably just wait. There's not much sense in commentating the game while this is going on. He has an Accursed Marauder and a Grief in hand. Both cards that can be pretty impactful here. And the Winter Moon is not as effective against what's it called? Sorry, not as effective against the mana base he has now, to a Delighted Halfling, a Birds, and a basic land. And yeah, we have an okay. Arid Mesa is a bit of a punishing fetch line to draw when you already have your mountain in play. I will have a look if Slimefoot is playing the full set of snow-covered lands.
I'm back.
No, there is no snow-covered lands in the Slimefoot list. There's a Tainted Pact, but there is no snow-covered lands.
That's a really cool mountain here.
Hmm. I think that's one of the Chinese New Year mountains, if I remember correctly.
Yes, could be the case.
Well, no, I think it's an Avatar mountain.
Isn't it a Final Fantasy mountain? I think it's from Final Fantasy actually. Because I considered to get one myself.
Okay, it's not one of the.
No, it's a Final Fantasy mountain. Here you go. Ta-da.
Nope, that's not the same mountain.
It is.
It looks very similar, but it's not the same mountain.
Oh, there's the
It is
sun. You're right.
an
You're right.
Assassin's Creed mountain.
Ah, okay. You're right. There's the sun. I missed the sun. But this one is also cool. I could
Mm-hmm.
imagine that this one might be the budget version, you know?
I like the Assassin's Creed basics as well.
Yeah, me too. Me too. They're really cool.
There's some very cool ones.
Definitely. The new ones with the pizza slices on it, not so much. I don't know.
That's true. But the the turtles at night across New York, the other full art one from the TNMT set.
Yeah.
Um,
So this is the mountain that is
it's
currently
pretty cool.
played. So I don't know. It's always hard, you know, when you see the game, and I contacted the people. I got no response. Apparently, it's very hard. So they're a bit outside, and sometimes you have no phone connection.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if they get my messages. That's the problem right now. It's always a bit hard to talk about a game that should look very different due to several things happening here. I mean, yes, the tiger fetch is illegal. Then again, with the halfling is providing the mana that's needed, so he could have also searched for Badlands. Would be fine.
Yeah, the fetch could have been resolved differently, but also, like, you can't roll it back anymore with the information of the Winter Moon being around. You also can't. Yeah, I mean, I think this should be a warning to both players. in the end. They might be innocent mistakes, but they're mistakes that shouldn't be happening. Mm. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how they handle it, if they handle it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think round 5 or round 6 actually should be still, acceptable from an energy level. But yeah.
Going back, like, it also would have probably changed the play of the Light-Paws player if the Slimefoot had resolved before the like, he probably wouldn't have cast the Winter Moon either, right? So all these sorts of things are relevant. The Accursed Marauder finally coming down. Strong play against the protection from black and red creature,
Yeah.
but he has a Spider-Man to throw into the mix.
I like that energy here. Into the mix. Very true. Yeah, we'll see how that turns out.
Looking at it, I think we'll probably see the Accursed Marauder go as well. I think the Mana Dogs are valuable,
Yeah,
and
definitely.
he can't sack a Saproling to keep it around. But he
I
can
think
attack with a Slimefoot. He can. The Keynight Curator was played this turn.
the Keynight Curator can exile a creature by now, a land.
Creature land an instant. Other
Yes,
types that it
correct.
has access to currently. And we will likely see a sorcery at some point or an enchantment at some point, so
Yeah. So
yeah.
attacking with the Spider-Punk here is really, really good. Apparently, damage can't be prevented, which means you can't block with the Sanctifier.
Ah. But I don't know why he would be attacking with a Saproling, right?
I think that's, yeah. You probably leave that behind. So here we go. Going down to 11.
What
Yeah,
did he block the Saproling or not?
I still dislike the fact that this game would have been completely different if it was for the mana type to resolve but not have an impact, And now there's a Light-Paws coming down. And there is a Insight. I have no idea what the card is called.
I think it's called Cyclopean Insight.
Yeah,
I will have a look.
Cyclopean. It's definitely something with Insight.
Triclopean
Cyclopean
Insight.
Insight.
Because
Yeah,
it has
okay.
2 eyes on its head and two eyes in its face and one on its head.
That
Yeah,
makes perfectly sense.
Light-Paws. He could get a. I'm guessing he's probably looking for something with lifelink, or maybe he could just get a big creature.
For whatever reason.
The Insight does give
Sight, not Insight. Sight.
sight.
Yeah, that's where I don't find it.
The sight does give vigilance.
Yeah.
Which means that if he gets something, if he gets an aura that gives lifelink, sheltered by ghosts,
Here we go.
can also take care of the spider punk.
I
If
don't
that's
know.
what he's
It's
wanting,
it's
which
a
would mean that
very
the damage can't be prevented on the sanctifier. Or yeah, damage can be prevented on the sanctifier again. Yeah,
yeah.
that is what he's doing.
So, continuing with the Hope of Jirapur, and at least untapping one more land. You get to untap one non-basic. Great. If you find a way to get rid of Light-Paws, I mean, it will be costly due to the ward. But if you find a way, you also have enchantment in the graveyard, which means that the Keen-Eyed Curator could suddenly become a 7/7 trample.
True.
If you find another 4 mana to exile the appropriate cards, of course, but just gonna show the
Oh,
card real quick. Oh, a
Headliner
Headliner.
Scarlet
That
does
seals the deal.
11
Right?
damage, right?
Yeah, 3,
Does
9. Yeah,
it
yeah.
does 12
12
damage.
even. 12 even.
So
Yeah, honestly, that's fair, considering the fact that the mana type should have not resolved here. So in the end, it had no impact on the game result. Because I think with this Slimefoot coming down, this would have sealed the deal earlier, much earlier.
yeah, yeah.
Already. Think differently playing against those decks. In comparison to Slimefoot, well, you definitely. Of course, the deck has 120 cards instead of only 100, right? Because there's always some adjustments that you can make depending on the metagame and whatnot. But I think most people can very, very well estimate what's coming down on turn 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. So, a dork. This time, no delighted halfling. And there is a curse of silence, I think. Or not.
Curse of Night Silence naming Slimefoot, I'm guessing, is a pretty strong line against the deck. It does have plenty of other good 3-drops and other good things to do. Mm.
Yeah, so taxing, having the mountain here is rough. But I mean, your commander is taxed, so it costs 5 anyways. I would assume that Light-Post called Slimefoot. So now you can think about playing the mountain and okay, playing a Hexing Squelcher. Not tapping ideally here,
Mhm.
right? But the little goblin is definitely a good addition to any red featuring deck, or at least most red featuring decks. Slightly different wording compared to the Spider Punk that we saw in game 2. You can counter the Spider Punk. Oh, and here's the Lash Knife you talked about earlier. So I will bring that up again.
So this is a really dangerous position for Slimefoot because he gets to search for a CMC2 enchantment while very likely also having a CMC1 flash enchantment open.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
if Slimefoot is thinking, okay, well I have a lightning bolt to deal with the turn 3 Light-Paws, and he lets him resolve this, then so if he doesn't have anything here,
It
this will spiral out of control pretty quickly.
Yeah, this will probably end up in a Daybreak Coronet, I would assume. To have like, here we go, to have a big Light-Paws on board, so it's definitely safe from any kinds of bolts and shocks and whatsoever. Even like a Pyroglyph coming in is currently not big enough to do something. It's actually 0/1, so that's not the card to go for.
Yep. And the text box swapping of Deadpool will hurt, but it's still a 6/6 first strike vigilance lifelink creature, which counteracts the 3 life drained from the Deadpool ability, if that's the kind of answer that Slimefoot is moving towards.
Yep. Yeah, this is the exact lineup that I was talking about when you face Light-Paws with Tifa. Incredibly hard to win the game through a big wall that has a bunch of toughness that gains life while blocking, while attacking. Very bad combat math here for Tifa, actually.
Yeah, and I mean, there is he has passed the turn here because he doesn't have the black mana to cast it, but next turn he has Worldly Tutor in order to assemble mm, Troll Metamorphosis Fanatic. He also has a Duress to maybe take a 1 mana Flash Enchantment.
Yeah, but I think you can just go for that because now you've spent your black mana,
Yeah,
and that's a military something, I guess. You've spent your black mana, which means you don't have an abrupt decay anymore, right?
yep,
It's a military discipline, if I'm not mistaken.
it is. Military Discipline is the
Yeah.
name of the card.
Yeah.
Guessing that will go for an Ethereal Armor.
Yeah.
It could also, oh, well, no, the Hexproof enchantments are pretty worthless.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't do anything at that point.
Could also go
And
for a Spirit Link to gain
you can just go for a Flickering Ward. You
that
gain
too.
even more cards attached next turn and just have a lethal combat step, I would assume. So we see very big Light-Paws already. Next turn, there will definitely be an Ethereal Armor coming in.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, you have 4 mana. Yeah, which is perfectly enough to cast Flickering Ward twice, so you can get a Griff Spoon also. Yeah, that's more of a desperate attack here with the Goblin. That's a game state that I would have personally conceded already. I think it would have been much better to. Isn't that a grist in his hand? I think it would
I
have
don't
been
think
much.
so.
No, the. I
I think
think
it's
it's.
a Birthing Pod.
Is it a birthing pot? Okay. It looks like the funky artwork, you know?
Yeah, the funky Birthing Pod artwork, I think, is.
It looks like this to me for the grist, but it might also be the funky birthing pot. You're right. So you think it's this one here, right?
Yeah, I think that's the one.
Yeah. Otherwise, I think you would have played grist and tried to trade the dog with Light-Paws. This would have been the best thing to do, I guess. So here we have that the Flickering Ward And now that your opponent tapped both creatures, let me see. Ethereal Armor is coming in for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, it's not exactly lethal, but you gain so much life. And since Slimefoot is not featuring any combo, I think that's basically GG here.
We have, you saying, so two from the Light-Paws, one from the, no, none from the Lash Knife, 3, 4. What is this one?
That's an Ethereal Armor.
Ah, some artwork that
It's
I
a
don't know.
Duskmourn artwork, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and then you can basically do that again. Your opponent has no black mana open, so you don't really have to fear any damage base removal. So that should seal the deal. I don't know about you, but I think that does the job. I mean, how are you planning to bring your opponent down from? There could be an All That Glitters. But apart from that, you have to wait another turn. But if it's that much damage in combination with the Jirapur, he could have flickered, like returned the flickering ward and add more damage, right? But it might not be enough. Let me check the CMC one.
You could have added
Because
1 damage.
yeah,
There's no
2 actually.
big damage
with
added.
the additional,
Yeah.
due to the additional enchantment. But yeah, you're right. All of those boosts are only +1/+1. And yeah. So it's probably better to keep up the remaining spell that seems to be another protection spell, just in case your opponent has, yeah, an Accursed Marauder, for example. And you're definitely right, it's a Birthing Pot. Now I saw it too. But is the Marauder enough?
Okay, so he plays the Marauder.
Wouldn't you try
Curious.
to...
What is his...
Wouldn't you try to leave the Phyrexian Tower open to find something with the pot? I mean, I don't have his list at hand. And it's definitely a situation. If there's
So,
another edict, it's definitely a problem. But
what is he getting? What is he thinking of getting for 2?
either for 2 or for 3.
Yeah, that's yeah. Because he would have to find a... I'm looking at it right now. I don't think there is anything. I can send it to you. If he
There's
had a
there's
creature, if he had a
there's
bigger
no way
creature
to
in play,
get back the Marauder, right? If there's a line for that.
yeah, if he had a Carnage for it,
Yeah.
then he could have done it. But he also only has 3 life, so he doesn't have enough to...
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's why I said it would be useful to keep open the Phyrexian Tower.
yeah,
Make 1 more mana, and then you can...
yeah,
You're at 1, but if you get rid of the entire board,
yeah, yeah.
I think it's worth it.